it's a better class of lumber.
Yeah. All right, so we talked about fencing, we talked about memories. Let's talk about being a landlord. All right, that's got to be a lot of fun to rent to people. You got people coming in, they pay their rent on time every month, and they always keep their place clean and neat.
Yeah, they do.
And that's what are some of the challenges of being a landlord?
Well, the biggest challenge I found was the first time they come to you, they'll point out things they want to do. I want to do this, and can I improve that? Can I fix this up? And I always tell them no. I said, just leave it alone. Anything needs to be done, I'll take care of it. And then next thing you know, it ain't within a month or two that you having bad experiences out of renting. And then they'll move someone in and they'll say, you know what, I'm just wanting to help them out. Because I'll ask them, I said, what are they doing here? He said, I just want to help them out. And I said, I might want to help them out. I said, well, I understand it's just you and your family living here, not everybody else's family.
Right.
And then you'll have cars coming in and out all day long, constantly people coming in. And in your contract, you know, it says that there's only just to be them up and down the road.
Right.
You can understand family coming in and out. But I've never had too many good experiences at all out of renting, but you know, it's a good income, and it's something that you have to do once you start.
Yeah.
You got to keep doing it.
You know, I've got places right now that are sitting empty. I put new cushion vinyl in, painted the walls, worked on everything, got a bed sitting in them and stuff, but I locked them up. And I said, I talked to my mom. I said, I've got 3 places that I've got empty, but I don't want, people call all the time wanting to rent.
Yep.
But I don't want to rent. I said, no, it's just fine. And got enough rental income, got enough stuff. I'd rather than have somebody else to think about and worry about. I'd just soon not have anybody in it. Right. Sometimes, you know what I mean? Leave your place in a wreck. And there's a lot of challenges. When you get good renters, I don't want no more.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it don't really work out over the long run. It costs you more than what's worth.
No.
But people don't think about that when they rent from you.
They don't. No. Usually anybody's renting, you got to look at the factors about them. They can't buy a place, so they don't have credit. Right. That's why they're renting.
Yeah.
And then if they could buy a place, most of them, they wouldn't even pay the bills on the place. Right. So they're not going to pay you.
You know, most time too, I don't rent. And one thing I've got people that rent from me, I never rent from the same person twice. I rent to you one time. But if you move out, I never rent to them again. I'll have them call, want to rent again. I said, no, I told you when you stayed here, I rent to you one time. And that's it. After that, because they'll come and they'll go. And like you said, a lot of times you rental property, you have to furnish utilities and stuff like that. And I had a guy one time tell me he was praying for God to give him a financial blessing. He was telling me all about it. And he said, how come God hadn't moved for me? I said, well, let me think for a second. If Appalachian Power can't trust you, why do you think God would trust you? Okay. I said, so you got to, I said, you get Appalachian Power where they trust you.
Yeah.
Then I'd say you might get a prayer through. You know, you might be able to work it out somehow.
They already started out having bad credit.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them have had their electricity and every cousin, uncle, aunt's name.
That's the way it works.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about it. So we talked about rental property, but let's talk about money for a minute, okay? When we think about money and you think about finances, there's people out there that live off the same amount of income, whatever you get, whatever you make every month, whatever you live off of, but they live from hand to mouth. Why do you think, and this is a real question, why do you think what are some advice you can give people about taking care of their money and finances?
Well, number one thing, I think you should always pay your tithes. Be into some local church, be in a good gospel, Bible-based church. And you should pay your tithes, and it really does count, and it makes a difference to pay your tithes. I always pay mine, and, you never miss it.
But let me ask you this, Tom. We see people that pay their tithes and they give an offering, but they still live from hand to mouth. Some of them live from hand to mouth. Well, there's got to be some keys that in the flesh that we do that causes us to be able to pay our power bill every month. You know what I mean? And to be able to get a place to live and be able to do things. And there's some things that you've done, some principles that you've applied that you learned growing up that you use now.
Well, you would need to make investment.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, like rental, I invested in rental. I've probably been in it about 16 years now, and it was a good investment, but it was an experience that I'll never forget. You don't know someone until you rent to them. Once you rent to them,
Mm-hmm.
you start learning them then. And you got to invest in something. Maybe you may need heavy equipment, or maybe you need to work for someone to where you're making good money. But you should always seek for the best for yourself. And the best is that, you gotta prosper. And that's what the Bible says, He wants you to prosper and be in good health, even though as your soul prospers. If your soul's prospering, everything else is going to prosper.
Mm-hmm.
It'll come forth to you.
Well, but can you live above your means? Is it possible?
I'd say you probably, maybe, I don't know. It's according to how it is in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Usually anybody, if it's got a real good heart, they just constantly helping people, and they stay on the same level as they should be on.
Mm-hmm.
They're raising.
Mm-hmm.
If you get above your raising, you.
Well, I don't mean much. I mean, just because I pay my tithes, can I run out here at Ramey's and get me a new car next week for $1,600 a month? You know what I mean? See, I think sometimes people, they get ahead of stuff, and you can pencil and paper is a pretty good thing. It don't lie a whole lot.
Right.
If you look at pencil and paper and say, all right, I'm making this and I'm making this, and I've always shared with my kids. I said, if you want to buy something, I don't care what it is. It can be a apartment building. It can be a brand new Mercedes. Go see how much it costs and put that much money back for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Put that back. If it's $5,000 a month, put that $5,000 back. And at the end of that 6 months, if you can do it and you feel all right with it, then go do it.
Right.
And if you decide you don't do it, you've still got that money you've saved. If you do it, you still got that much money to pay down.
Right.
But you figure out if you really want to do it, if you want to make that sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes a lot. You know what I mean?
Well, it tells you too, if you can make sacrifice.
Right. See?
I've seen people buy a lot of things or take something and they didn't even have the money.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know how I'm going to pay it. Then they stuck.
Yeah.
You got to count the cost.
Yeah.
Before you're going to build a building or buy a vehicle.
You got to see what's going to run out.
You got to count the cost.
I think that's I don't know. I've seen it happen so much in people with good intentions and want to do things, but you really got to look at it and say, this is what I can afford.
Right.
Yeah. I'd love to have I've shared this before. I don't know if you ever seen them. I loved them Chevrolet Sparks that Chevrolet made. Okay. I loved that little. I had one of them. It's the only car I ever felt like I wasn't losing money when I was driving it.
Yeah.
It's $12,000 when I bought it. Drove it, put 80,000 miles on it, 40-some miles to the gallon. I felt good about it. I'd like to have another one, but my truck runs just fine.
That's right.
It's got 130,000 on it, but it runs like a top, brand new tires. Janice's car runs good, new tires, new battery, everything okay. So I would like to have one.
Right.
But I think, well, I know I don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
So at 65, I'm sort of getting to where I'm figuring what I really need and want and what I don't want to have to. Then I think about other things we like to do. Janice, I think, well, if I had to make that payment every month, I could buy 2 tanks of fuel for the camper. And we could be in Florida, for that. Mm-hmm. And or I think about stuff like that. I think, well, everything's about trading. You trade your time for money and your money for stuff.
Right.
All the time. Time for money and money for stuff. And I think we got to know that. That's part of it, ain't it?
We do. Yeah, you got to count your cost. And a lot of times, I've seen it happen a lot, that you can buy things and you really don't even need it.
Right.
And I've done that a time or two, and I sit back and look at it, and I'm like, why did I even buy it for? I didn't need it.
Yeah.
So as I got older, I had to buy my own things, and as I got older, I had to pay for my own.
Yeah.
I learned to just buy what you need. Buy within your means.
Yeah.
Don't continue just to buy just because you can buy.
And I think that's financial advice, okay?
It is.
And if you don't spend your money on crazy stuff too, and I know there's times that we want some stuff, and I'm not saying, listen, man, if you work hard and you want it, but you got to understand, you can get that buyer's remorse.
Yeah.
Can't you?
You can.
You get thinking, what in the world have I done? And that can happen a lot.
Well, kids is that way. They want to buy. They want stuff constantly. And every time you go to the store, when you come out, they want a toy. What did you buy me?
Right.
And they constantly want things, you know, and I've seen grown-ups that way.
Yeah.
And they would constantly want things, and then you buy too much, the next thing you know, you done got yourself in a bind.
Yeah.
And
it's easy. And you know what I found is too, you gotta let other people, sometimes you can put yourself in a bind for other people.
yeah.
Okay. And when other people's, this is a fact, the way I see it, you can let other people's goofy decisions cause you to be in a bind. Right. Okay, because you're trying to help them out, and you're really not helping them. No. You're not helping them, because they'll do the same thing over again. You got to let sometimes the rubber meet the road.
Right. You're only putting a patch over it.
That's exactly.
To help them for a little while. It ain't solving the problem.
I've always said there's a difference between giving a fish or a fishing pole.
Yeah.
And my kids, I've always tried to give them fishing poles.
Yeah.
Not real fishing poles, because I don't fish. But I fished twice in my life. I'm no good at it. But I try to give them a fishing pole instead of fish. You know, and I've seen them all move forward like that. And I think that's when we deal with children and even people in our life. Sometimes, man, you're constantly giving people fish when you need to give them a fishing pole.
Right. That's what they always said down at Southwest College, that you can catch a fish and feed a child for a day. Mm-hmm. Or you can teach them to fish and they can feed themselves for a day.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they gotta be taught. You can't put a kid in college like my grandson. He would probably go up to a certain grade higher than what he is now, but what he's in now, he's got to learn. And then as time goes on and he gets to a certain age, he's ready for college. Mm-hmm. You know, you got to be taught that from a child up.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tom. All right, hold on.
Outside, you can go in there, work cooled off that day, and it's cool in there.
I tell you what I like about this shed. I like the floor. It's waterproof. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There's things like that.